What's up, homies? I am so glad that you are here, and I am so glad to have Amber O'Neill Johnston here with us as well. You guys, she's the heritage mom, her very self, and she's here to talk to us about creating a place to belong. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
What I love about Amber, and I feel like I've only dipped my toe into her world, and I have goosebumps every time I do. I like want to do full jump into the pool. What I love is how she creates home and environment and culture and family and values all into this beautiful like stew and presents it. I see her teaching her children from this stew and teaching me from this stew. What is your perspective in what goes into the pot, Amber?
So my goal is typically two things. I am pouring into the pot to help my children and other children grow really deep roots. And of course, all of our children have different roots. They have some roots in common, but that's a lot of, the choices I'm making in books and poetry and music and pouring in all of this connectedness to their ethnicity, to their nation, to their communities, to their families, all of those things. And then the second part is I'm expecting from that to see those deep roots produce wide branches that reach out to other people in really authentic, genuine ways that are easy, like not so difficult as maybe some of the previous generations find it. So that's basically everything I do. I filter through those. I'm either growing roots or I'm trying to help those branches expand. And that's the work that I do.
That is so cool. That's so great. And you talk about that we offer our children opportunities to see themselves and others through the lessons that we use to teach them. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I talk a lot about if we think about our kids' lessons as mirrors and windows, and the things that we do with them, the things we read with them, the places we take them, and so it's not like a separate set of things because what may be mirrors for my family will be windows for yours, but yet our kids are still experiencing the same thing. They're still reading the same books. They're still doing and going the same places, but it's how they filter it that makes it different. So a mirror is a book or experience where a child can see themselves reflected. I talk about it a lot. My family's African American, so I talk about it a lot from a Black experience. But it also, I mean, my kids also get just as excited when we're reading a book and someone in the book is homeschooled. They start jumping up and down and woo, hollering and all that because that book is a mirror for them and it's a mirror that they don't normally get. And so mirrors can be lots of different areas of reflection. It could be kids who live in an urban environment, kids who are in a high-rise building who rarely get to see their lives play out in a fun children's book, or kids that live out in the country or homesteaders. It can be all different types of things. And then the windows, that's the idea of the books and experiences we give our children that allow them to see how other people live or experience life or how they see the world. And those are really excellent opportunities, especially because oftentimes because of geography and other reasons, we don't necessarily have as diverse of lives as we wish we would. Our hearts want that, but our zip code is not helping us. And so there are these other things that we can do to really add to the richness that our kids are receiving while they're growing up. And so mirrors and windows, it's a great kind of analogy and everybody gets it immediately. And so I like to talk a lot through that lens.
Yeah, that's really powerful. That's so powerful. So as we're interacting with mirrors and windows ourselves and introducing mirrors and windows to our children, I see how this could lead to deep roots of belonging. And you talk a lot about belonging, and I'm wondering what qualifies belonging, especially as we're learning more about ourselves and also reaching out to see new and different things. Like, how do we cultivate that belonging?
Uh, there are a lot of different ways, which is what I love about it, because ultimately it's still giving the mother the um, autonomy to create that belonging in the way that's right for her family and her home. But some of the key things are really open and honest discussion, like the ability for an atmosphere in your home where your children have the ability to ask you anything and they have the ability to say things like to work out the world around them out loud without
Mm.
judgment or admonition. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Admonishment. There you go. and made up a word there. And because I think about, the example I use is like when I was growing up, it was all about like being colorblind, right? And so if I wanted to like tell my mom and dad about something that happened at school, I'd be like, oh, it was this girl, the girl that plays the violin in the orchestra with me. She always wears the red shirt with the white shoes in the third chair. And what I was really thinking to say was, it's the girl that's from China, or, it's the white girl with the blonde hair, the blonde curly hair. And I never felt like I could say it because if I said something like that, my mom would be like, Amber, there was no need for you to say that. There was no need for you to describe them like that. And I was like, it was just a descriptor. But with my kids, I'm like, yeah, Chinese girl, super cute over there. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Or they'll say, like, Mom, it was the person that has the really, really, really dark skin. Exactly what you're talking about, because there's only one dude at church with really, really, really dark skin. Like, oh, that's it. So
Yeah.
there's no shame, but it's more like a normalizing the fact that children do see differences and changing the narrative that when you see those differences, I just want to come alongside you and make it normal and celebrate it. It's like, yeah, that awesome looking person over there, rather than kind of the shaming and the quieting. So the idea that you can talk, your kids can talk to you about anything, is one of the ideas. Obviously, I'm really big about the books that are in your home library or that you're checking out, huge decisions, the things your children watch on television or the movies you choose, the field trips and places you go, performances you see. Like these are, I guess for me, it's working it into what your family is already doing and kind of into, rather than manufacturing a bunch of stuff that's not really how your family normally flows.
Yeah, because that's the easiest way. And we're not going to do stuff that we don't normally do for long. That's just the nature
No.
of us. We got to do it our way, right? So what kind
Yeah.
of music and books in particular and media in general, do you feel like enriches your home and creates that sense of belonging?
Yeah, so for my kids, it's definitely because and I know this because in the beginning I was using a lot of book lists that I found online and that a lot of my friends were using, and they were so filled with such good books that I didn't necessarily see a problem right away until my kids were like, "Yo, are there ever gonna be any black people in any of these books?" And you know what? No, not on this list or that one or this one or that one. And so I started to create my own list, but I didn't want like, oh, there's black people in it, therefore it's great. It might still be a sucky book. So I really got into curating and reading and saying, this is authentic, this is beautiful, um, this is special. And then I started sharing it with other people. And so for me, it's really quality, beautiful stories. And those can be fictional stories or those can be stories of real people and events. But I want to hear the stories of people specifically, and people of today and people of yesterday. And then when I'm looking for books as windows and books that talk about other people, obviously looking to do a lot of research to make sure they're respectfully told. And sometimes I
Mm.
get it wrong. I've had friends tell me before, they're like, that does not represent my people. And I'm like, it doesn't. I thought it was such a cute story. They're like, not cute, Amber. And I'm like, okay, like I didn't know, teach me, and then they tell me and they open my eyes and I'm like, gosh, I, didn't see it. I didn't see it. I didn't know. Thank you. So I don't always get it right, but I think fear can keep you from trying it all. So, those are just kind of out there trying to learn about people, ourselves and other people, and see what comes of it.
And you know what? When we're brushing shoulders with people who are not us, which is everybody else, even our own families, even our own kids, there's bound to be some rough spots that hit, right? Of like, hey, that wasn't cute, Amber.
Yeah.
Or this happens to me all the time too. Like, that actually was offensive. Like, oh,
Yes.
sorry. I just didn't know. But it's worth the rub, right?
Yeah, yeah, it totally
That
is. And
makes
I
sense.
think that that's part of where relationship comes in, because the reason that I can be told that I made a misstep or I said something insensitive or I did something is because I'm in relationship with people who can tell me those things. And so it's really hard, as we found, you see what's happening in the nation when social media is your only place where you're hearing other voices and you're getting slammed and called names. But in relation people recognize that sometimes the other person will make a mistake. Sometimes you will get hurt, but you've had so many positive inputs in this relationship, this decision that you've made to do life together, that you can absorb those and talk about them and you can actually move on. And it's usually creates a stronger bond when both people are committed to, kind of living life out in the messy parts too together. So I've found that in my friendships and relationships that, yeah, we say things wrong. Sometimes we take a joke too far. Sometimes it's ignorance or whatever. But that's how we learn. I mean, I don't learn from getting yelled at on Instagram. You know what I mean? That makes me
Not
defensive and
helpful.
angry. So yeah, go figure. But yeah, that's kind of how I think. I think our kids are the same way. They learn from positive experiences and honesty and little drops in the bucket over time.
Yeah, of course. Just like I saw, that totally makes sense. So when you were writing your book, which is beautiful, it's called A Place to Belong, and it's a guide for families of all backgrounds to raise kids to celebrate their heritage, their community, and the whole world at large. When you were writing this book, A Place to Belong, what was your driving motive and how did you incorporate your own story? Did you feel like there was a filter you needed to add? I don't know. Tell us all about it. Tell us all about it.
So actually, no, I didn't feel like there was a filter, and that's why part of why I wrote the book, because I do feel filtered online. You have that immediate feedback of unfollowing and nasty comments or whatever. And so with the book, it was like my chance to be heard without any direct, real time feedback. So I could be in that moment long enough to really open up and pull out my actual feelings versus a curated feeling or feeling uncomfortable. So that was part of it. And I think for me, it was a matter of writing the book that I want to read. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to write a book. It was like, oh my gosh, to read this book. And I couldn't find it. And what I mean is that it felt like most of the books I found were trying to make me choose. Like I can either choose celebrating who we are in our home to the exclusion of other people, or I could choose to do this whole like kumbaya moment where everybody's the same and just holding hands and never talking about anything. And then my kids get left out in the rain. And so I was like, why did I do both? Like, why can't I tell my children that you are valued, important, and wonderful, and beautiful, smart, and deserving? And so are a whole lot of other people. But you're not the only one like that. And that's kind of the idea that led me to want to write it.
Oh, I like that. I like that idea, but thought without interruption.
Yeah,
That,
rare.
that's so good. I'm going to give our internet a second to catch up with us. All right. So, me, a white girl from Salt Lake City, Utah, Mormon white girl, how do you recommend somebody like me step into the foray of a broader culture, but also recognizing my own rich cultural heritage?
Oh yeah. So I mean, I would dive head first to your own rich cultural heritage. And I think to be totally honest, I mean, I mentioned this in the book. I think a lot of the problems we have in our country are that it's almost like seems that the message is that if you're black or brown, you have this amazing rich cultural heritage. And if you're white, you're just plain white. And that's all there is to it. And like it's problematic from so many different directions. But even, I look at my white friends and I'm like, no, girl, there's a story there. You have people and your people came from somewhere and you're living a certain life right now and it's not plain. As a matter of fact, I'm at your house. I see lots of cultural markers for who you are and your family that you could celebrate with your children. So I think that's first and easiest. And even if you didn't grow up with like these deep root connections, you can learn about them now and incorporate them into your family. And not always an active doing. Like for me, when I started really getting to this work, like I changed the artwork that was hanging on the walls in our home and like changed music that Alexa plays while we're eating dinner. These are like it wasn't this huge like thing that took a lot of time or cost money. So I think those things are really, really important. And once you kind of got that going, it's where you start just seeing where things take. I think it's always good to start closest to home. If your children have an aunt or uncle or a cousin that comes from somewhere else or is different in some way, studying that first and making recipes from where they're from. And it could be in a country or it could just be like grew up in Illinois. I mean, recipes from the deep South were novel to me, you know? I was like, grits, that, you know? And so I think, like, again, it doesn't have to be this big, huge, fancy thing, but you just start reaching out further and further from who they know to who is in the community to your state and country and keep going. And it ends up being so fun that it's kind of like a snowball rolling down a mountain. It just gets bigger and bigger on its own. You will just use the power to get it started.
Well, that's empowering. I'm ready to go. Tell me about what art you changed. What were the art changes that you made?
Okay, so just like all of our books were like classics, traditional classics, and a lot of older award-winning books. So again, really excellent, but all white. Well, the art on our walls, it was old masters and things that we were studying in school and traditional oil paintings and things. Again, very beautiful. But once again, so my kids' reading life didn't show any pictures of them or, you know, reading of them. And then they just walk around the halls of their house looking at people. You know, I laugh about it now, but I'm just being honest because I never want people like, I just embody this. Like I just woke up and knew how to do all of this. I want to see like where I came from, like how far I journeyed from there, and that it required a level of, and I changed my mind because now I know.
Are we there? Are we unstuck?
I can hear you. I don't know.
What's going on?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it just got a little bit choppy. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound perfect. Maybe it's my internet. It shows that I have a good signal. I don't
There we
know.
go. Oh, now we're great. We were just on a roll. We're changing the world. The
Yeah.
adversary's after us. Okay, so you were saying they walk down the halls of your own house and it's kind of foreign.
Yeah, it was beautiful though, you know, and I think that's part of my message that is a little bit different than some of the other messages out there. I think in some messages people are saying you need to diversify because what you are doing is bad. And mine's like, no, the art on my wall was really beautiful. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had it up there. The books I was reading to my children were actually really good, or I wouldn't have been reading them. It was that our life was incomplete, not that it was
Mm.
bad. And so that's kind of where the idea was that my children, when they walk around their own home where they live, they should know for sure, without a doubt, if they don't fit in anywhere else, if they don't feel rooted anywhere else, that home is a place to belong.
That is so good. That is so good because this is the same even when we just shop at like somewhere like Target. If that's all we're doing, it's incomplete.
Yes. Yes.
What a great word.
Incomplete. Yeah.
All right, Amber, last thing here. I really like to invite my guests to participate in the How You Home rapid fire home challenge. Would you like to participate in this fun game?
For it. Let's do it.
Okay. So thank you for telling us about how to make our homes more culturally deep and rich in our branches as well. But I know that everybody has their quirky thing. What is your quirky thing when it comes to your house? What's the thing that your kids are like, don't do that, my mom's gonna kill you?
Okay, don't do that. My mom's gonna kill you. That would probably be don't go in her bedroom. Old school like that. And we have master on the main. And I cannot stand it when my kids' friends come over and they go in my bedroom. Until grandma teach you, you don't go in grown folks' rooms.
I like that one. I like that one. How weird would you say that is? Would you say that that's all that quirky?
I don't know because apparently my kids are like, Mom, none of the other moms care. We're always in Miss So and So's room and da da da. I was like, he's way cooler than me, but don't in my room.
That is so, so funny. My last guest, she was saying that no barcodes are allowed in her house. And if ever she's at her friend's house, she's like scratching off the barcodes under the vases, pulling off
Oh,
stickers.
that's
so
good. It's a pet peeve, isn't it?
I love when we have our things. I don't let people in my room either. Even my own kids. I'm like, get out of here. You have your own room. This is my room. The one place you
Yeah,
can't touch. I'm with you.
yeah.
What is the one thing that if you were to say this represents me and my household, what is it?
Ooh, this represents me and my household. I would say big dinners with way too much food, like obnoxious amounts of food spread all across my big farm table. Um, that is a memory I want my kids to have, that we had these raucous dinners with laughter and music and jokes and fun and really, really, really good food.
That's amazing. And I'm ready to come over. That sounds great. Okay, here's the really, really important questions. Um, do you tuck your sheets in at the bottom of your bed, or are you a free floating sheeter?
Oh no, they're tucked in for sure, for sure. Because I'm always cold. I want my feet covered up like little snuggly.
Right? Yeah. What about the top sheet? Do you put it right side down so you can flip it back and have the right side up, or do you just pull it right side facing up in the first place all the way to the top?
I just pull it right side up all the way to the top because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna be making it up very often, so it doesn't really matter. It's
I love it. Now, do you do your own laundry at your house, or do you guys all do laundry together?
My husband does all the laundry and everybody, it's been going on for 12 years and everyone thinks that's like so awesome, but it was totally born out of an argument. He's complaining about the way I did laundry and he kept complaining and kept complaining. And I was like, well, my mom said, if you don't like the way something's done, you should do it yourself. And he was fine, will. And I was like, good. And that's it. So,
At the end.
back on it. So, did you win that argument, my dear? Because you've been doing laundry for 12 years now.
Attaboy. Attaboy. Stick to your guns.
Yep.
Final question is, do you vacuum your floors or do you sweep your floors?
I don't do either because I have four little people who have, they're committed to helping with those things and those are their jobs. But I don't care which one they do. They just needs to be clean. It's a little of both. Some of the kids love the vacuum cleaner and they use it a lot, like especially my boys, but the girls don't like lugging it up and down the stairs. So they tend to, go with the sweeping. But whatever they choose is fine with me.
However you want to do it. That's great. Well, you guys can find more of Amber because if you're like me, you just delight in everything that she says and can't get enough. You can find her at www.heritagemom.com and you can also find her on Instagram at Heritage Mom. And then she also has, Heritage Mom blog. Is that right? Okay. And she's on Facebook too if you want to go that way. Look up her book, A Place to Belong. You won't regret it. And are there any other final fanfaring, parade waving things you want to tell all the good people?
No, I just say, hey, if there's something that you want for your family, like go forth and create it. Don't worry if it doesn't come truly.
That is so good. Thank you so much. What a pleasure. You guys go make a mess. Go find that part of you that feels rooted and grounded and show it all over your house. And don't worry about it. It might look messy. It's totally, totally worth it. Thanks again, Amber. Talk to you next week, everybody.